A pair of instant classics, and finally, an upset. It's Locked on Sunbelt.
You are Locked on Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked on Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, so Georgia State beats Georgia Southern. We will get to that. That was a very good basketball game. Georgia State pulls away at the end. And we have kind of a back and forth ball game between ODU, it was a back and forth ball game between Old Dominion and Texas State, which just wrapped up. Top seeds still waiting to play. All right, so let's jump into this Old Dominion ball game because it kind of felt like this was what we had seen before in the Sunbelt, the way it had been in the Sunbelt tournament, the way it had been in Pensacola the last few years without the off day, right? Old Dominion had played last Friday, right? Wrapped up the regular season and played on Wednesday. They got a game in under their belt and won that ball game, obviously. All right, beat the Cajuns. They got off to a really fast start Thursday night, 19-7, 12-point lead. Sean Dura-Gordon at one point in time had 11 of the first 15 points for ODU. And remember, same thing for Texas State. They hadn't played since Friday. They hadn't played since their dramatic 2-overtime victory over JMU. So there's that whole, rested and ready balance that you have to have for these things. And a lot of times those lower seeds got both. They got to be ready and rested, and it wasn't really fair to these higher seeds. Okay, and that's the way it kind of looked at this point in time. And ODU was on fire. Didn't last the half. ODU got cold, and Texas State actually hit some free throws to take the lead at the end of the half, 29-27. Their only lead at the half. Their only lead in the first half was 2 free throws with less than 2 seconds to go in the half. Okay. Then it kind of went a little bit back and forth, maybe to begin the second half, and then Texas State hits a 3 to go up 35-33 with about 17 and a half minutes to go. And when you're on your computer, I should have been watching this on TV, but I got one thing on the TV and one thing on the computer. And when you're going back between the computer and the Twitter or X, the feed falls behind. So somehow I fell behind by a couple of minutes because I got the tab for the score and it's showing me something else. I thought I fell way behind. I didn't. I fell behind by a minute and a half. So I fast forwarded it to catch up, but then they were in timeout. So I went back. Robert Davis Jr. hit 3 threes in a minute and a half. They went from down 35-33 to up 42-35, they being Old Dominion. And they did that at the 15:47 mark. So just under 16 minutes to go, they had 42 points. It took them 10 minutes to score 50. They didn't get to the 51-point mark until 6:09 to go in the game. They went ice cold. They were trailing 55-49 with 7:16 and ended up getting to 51. Jaden Johnson made a jumper, making it 55-51 with 6:06 to go. So almost took them 10 minutes. They scored 9 points in a minute and a half. They scored 9 points in about 10 minutes, just under 10 minutes. So crazy ball game. it looked like Texas State was going to run away with this game. Now, quickly, the Sunbelt officials. What are we doing? All right. Texas State clearly pushes down one of Blakeney, I think, one of the ODU players. No call because there was no call on the court. That's a cop-out. Make a call. All right. Then at the end of the game, they say no time came off of the clock. Come on. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, that's some poor refereeing right there. It did not affect the game, but why didn't you make a call on what was clearly a flagrant foul? All right. Texas State just didn't want to pick up the ball and take it out of bounds. He picked up the ball, and Blakeney was asking for it, and he flopped, but you still shouldn't have done it. They should have called a flagrant one, probably. All right. And just give them free throws and give Texas State the ball. Probably what should have happened. But they called nothing, which is a cop-out. Anyway, so it kept on going. It kept, I mean, it kind of felt like Texas State, the same game that they had been playing against South Alabama and JMU, they just kept on coming back and coming back and coming back. And in this case, ODU kept on coming back. And Texas State could not put them away. The game was tied at 57. The game was tied at 59. And then it was 60-59. And I believe Texas State had like 3 chances. They threw the ball through the legs of one player, had the ball stolen, flat out stolen at the top, right across midcourt, just swiped away. And eventually, let's see what it was here. They did. I will say ODU had issues hitting free throws. So Sean Durr-Gordon hit 1 of 2. And Colton Benson on a clear hold, I guess, for Texas State made 2 free throws to tie it up at 61. And the game's still not over. Robert Davis Jr. hits another 3-pointer. That gives ODU a 3-point lead with 1.1 second left to go. We've talked about this a little bit. Caleb Swanton-Roger fouls Texas State. Maybe he was trying to foul him, before he shot. Actually, it looked like he did. He looked like he fouled him, and then he shot it, right? Whatever. They called it continuation. You got to be nowhere near that. This is not like you have 8 seconds to get it up court. This is going to be a half-court heave. This is not going to be your normal 3-pointer. This is in a game situation. Swanton-Roger didn't just land from Mars, and this is his first college basketball game. You have to understand the situation. Do not get close to them. What was he thinking? Texas State had a chance to tie, and they did not hit any of the 3 free throws. And so ODU wins 64-61. They are the first lower seed to win. Let's quickly check out. I guess they will be playing. Oh, let's not guess. Let's check it out. They will be taking on App State. So that was one of the teams. We mentioned Texas State, and I mentioned ODU before the tournament. That was kind of a team that, because of their scoring ability, I thought could pose a threat. We'll see. Now this is where we'll see where the legs get tired, because now it is 3 games in 3 days. App hasn't played. This will be App's first game today since last Friday. Well, yes, I believe that's the case, right? Everybody played on Friday. Okay. So we shall see. All right. But a great job. And again, ODU did not finish up that strong this year, right? Mike Jones, it's kind of been an uneven season at his alma mater. let's see where they did. They've won 3 in a row now. They did win their last ball game, but heading in, they won the last regular season ball game against Coastal Carolina. But before that, they'd lost 6 in a row. Like, I'm not gonna tell you I saw this coming, but I just know they have the firepower to score. And so they knocked off a couple of teams. They knocked off Coastal Carolina to get that spot, and now they've won a couple of ball games because they've beaten one lesser team and one team slightly better than them. So we will see what happens against App State. So you have an offensive team like ODU against a defensive team like App State. We shall see. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. You have Georgia State taking on Georgia Southern. We will do that after I tell you about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We got an ODU victory. They're taking on App State. And before that, on Thursday, we had Georgia State outlasting Georgia Southern. Again, this ends up being chalk. It was a pretty good ball game. I think Georgia State was mostly in control. They had a 15-point lead. They led it 61-46. Georgia Southern's biggest lead was 16-14. And so they did not have very much of a lead. But Georgia Southern did get it down to a 1-point game. They were down 61-46 with 10:38 to go in the game. So halfway through the second half, they're down 15. 5 minutes later, it's 63-62. So that's quite the run. Very, very quickly, right? I mean, that's a 16-2 run that Georgia Southern went on. And unfortunately, that was as close as they got. Georgia State went up by 3, went up by 5, went up by 3, 4, 5. Didn't feel like Georgia Southern ever had a chance to take the lead again, as Georgia State managed to pull away in this one. And it's been an interesting, year for Jonas Hayes and Georgia State. It's been a roller coaster year for them as well because, they just haven't competed, right? This is a perennial Sunbelt contender, all right, regardless of the deal. And now they have their own gym, out of nowhere, and, not the best of all teams, right? They did reel off 4 in a row. Monroe, they did beat Buffalo the MAC, Old Dominion, and they surprised App State, all right? They ended up losing to James Madison, but beat Old Dominion, so they had won 4 of 5, in fact, 5 out of 6, in fact. They did lose to Coastal, which was surprising. They lost to Georgia Southern by 1, and now they've just beat Georgia Southern in the Sunbelt Championship. But they had lost 4 in a row before. They had a 3-game winning streak. They had, now Now, these were tough ball games, right? They're losing at Kentucky. They lost to Kennesaw State. They lost to Charlotte. They lost to Auburn, which may be the best team in the country. They lost at Troy. They lost to Mercer. And then they lost to South Alabama. They did beat the Cajuns, Georgia Southern, and Coastal earlier. But it's really been not a great season for Georgia State. However, big picture, that was the big picture. Small picture, does any of that really matter if you have a good Sunbelt Conference tournament? Now, in this case, you may need a great Sunbelt Conference tournament. I don't know what is going on at Georgia State. Don't pretend to know. Follow the guys over at, GSU Panther Talk. Try to keep up with them. Obviously, just like, all those teams in football in the East, I know there's no divisions in basketball, but, they all think they would need to win every single year, right? App State has championship tradition, and Georgia Southern has championship tradition, and Marshall has championship tradition, and JMU has championship tradition. Well, Georgia State does have championship tradition, and it has not worked out the last few years for Jonas Hayes. And so it's nice to get that in there and get that win, especially over Georgia Southern. Now you got to go play Marshall. I think that's it, right? I'm one of those guys that thinks, Marshall can win it. So we'll see if that makes it a difference. That'll be up first. That'll be up Friday at 5 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Eastern, whereas the ODU App State game will follow that game somewhere around 7:30-ish Central Time, 8:30 Eastern. Not working on Saturday. I have another odd Saturday off, so don't have to get up early to worry about that one. So we can stay up and record, not worry about getting up to go to work early. But nonetheless, that's a big ball game for Georgia State, and that's a tough ball game to think that they are going to go out and beat Marshall. I think that's where that right there is that delineation between the top half of the conference, Marshall and App at the bottom of that part, and ODU, and now Georgia State. Texas State was there. They were the top of the bottom half. I think Marshall has a shot at winning this thing. They're going to have to beat Georgia State to prove it. I'm not sure App State can win this thing. We'll see if they can beat ODU. I think App State can beat Troy. I'm not sure that they can beat JMU. I'm not sure they can rattle off 3 wins. And I'm basing that not on their talent or their ability. I'm basing that on how they are playing. They have the talent. They have the ability. They just have not played well over the last few weeks. They have gone in the wrong direction. Congratulations to Georgia State. That's a great job to not fold where they very easily could. To be up by 15 with 10 and a half minutes to go and be up by 1 with 5.5 minutes to go like that, and to never lose the lead, that does show a little bit of fortitude and cohesiveness. And I think that's what Jonas Hayes said following the ball game. So that's a good job by Georgia State. They will take on a very difficult Marshall team on later today. That'll be again at 5 o'clock. Let's see what those two teams did this season against each other. Georgia State has split with Marshall. Marshall beat them 92-79, and Georgia State beat Marshall 85-81. Oddly enough, the road team won both games. Oddly enough. And obviously this is a neutral site ball game. All right, let's take a timeout. Meanwhile, out of all of this, top seeds are still waiting to play. We'll talk about that next after I tell you about Nissan. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt. Your teams every day. Did actually see Brian Hodgson in the arena on Thursday. So he was there maybe even a day earlier than I thought, because I figured he'd want to be there to watch the Marshall game, but he was there watching a day early. Not a bad way to, get the kids an extra couple of days. Maybe I didn't see the kids. That doesn't mean they weren't there, but he was in the arena. No, maybe he was there a day early. Also, Pensacola is not that far away from Tallahassee. Just saying. Just throwing it out there, Arkansas State fans. Who knows? Who knows? The coaching carousel, that's the one thing about college basketball. It comes fast and furious. And it's going to, like Mark Mine did. He beats Wisconsin, loses to Duke, and he's got the Vanderbilt job, before Shane Mettlen can get back to Harrisonburg the next day. So we'll see. All right. It'll be interesting to see what happens because Arkansas State hasn't finished up strong. They've had a couple of blowout wins against lesser teams, but if they lose to Marshall or I got to remember who they're playing, Georgia State, that would be a really disappointing season. I know they're co-champions, but they technically 4 seed. So in my mind, they finished 4th and then go out without getting to the semifinals. That's not the kind of season that people were looking forward to. Now I think Arkansas State can win this thing, just like the other 3 co-champions and Marshall. So we shall see. But it's very different when these athletes are creatures of habit, and even in baseball, right? Like the teams that don't win, I think we've seen that the last couple of years, except for the Dodgers, I guess. The teams that don't win the division seem to be at a bad advantage, because baseball players, they don't mind a day off. They don't like a long time off. Like there's a thing about the All-Star break, which is now longer. It used to be, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Some teams played Thursday and some teams played Friday. Well, now nobody plays on Thursday. You get an extra day, and everybody plays Friday. But in the playoffs, those teams that are not playing that wild card round, they're not playing for a week. They're not used to it. And that's the way these kids are. So I don't think one extra game makes a big difference. I don't know why my getting allergies. I'm not allergic to anything. I don't know my eyes have just dried out. So I apologize that I'm no reason for me to be crying. I'm not that emotional. So again, Arkansas State will have gone 8 days, or is it even 9, right? We got to count them out. So they all played Friday. Arkansas State isn't playing until Saturday, right? So they're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 off days. South Alabama and JMU are going to have 8 off days. That's a lot. I don't know about timing, how much that makes a difference. But you certainly, it could be a thing. Certainly not out of shape type of deal, but there's practice shape and then there's game shape, things like that. So these guys haven't played. I think for the first time, and it's really only day 3, but we did see ODU come out against Texas State, and it looked like ODU had played a game and Texas State hadn't played a game in a week. It looked like ODU had played the day before and Texas State had been off for a week. And so these other teams have, we'll see if some of these teams have issues shooting threes. I'm not sure if anybody has shot the lights out yet shooting threes. Let's see here. Georgia Southern was 9 of 29. That's not bad. Georgia State, 4 of 13. I mean, 9 to 29 is a lot of threes. That's shooting a lot of threes. That's both 31%. Let's see in the other ball game. ODU was 8 of 23, 35%. Texas State just 4 of 13. I mean, no one's making a whole lot of threes. And so the idea being the first thing that goes are your legs. And so we'll see if teams are short. But you do have to see who's playing who. If it's 1 versus 2, there's no advantage, right? If Marshall sneaks in there and ends up playing JMU, that's a huge advantage. If it's Troy playing South Alabama, that's not a big advantage, right? It's 1 extra game, I don't think. All right, that's where So we'll see how that all comes down to it. But these teams have not yet played. It's so weird. So I think the other conferences, they got to play at least a few games, but the Sunbelt is doing their best, as Matt Stewart said, protecting their best teams. And, South Alabama and JMU get all the way to the semifinals. You only have to win twice. That is not a lot, right? You got to win 2 ball games. It's just you got to come up. You got to win twice in 2 days. It's not asking a whole lot, but it is much harder than you think. But we'll see. I mean, again, if South Alabama is playing Arkansas State and JMU is playing Troy, it's the normal advantage that Arkansas State played 1 ball game. Maybe they have their legs underneath them and South Alabama doesn't, but there's no huge advantage. Whereas they played Marshall and Marshall is playing, their 3rd game in 3 days. We'll see. All right. So Marshall's got Georgia State. Then if Marshall wins, they play Arkansas State. And if Marshall wins that, then they get South. Then South would have a big advantage. One would think, where you got to hang tight and see if that advantage comes at the end of the ball game. I'm not sure the advantage is going to be, you're going to have adrenaline running to begin with, because you're Marshall, you're like, we're 1 game away from getting to the championship game. You're not, you can't be tired then, right? You may not be able to control that at the end of the ball game. So we'll see. All right. Long way to go. We finally do get an upset. ODU is the first team to pull an upset. They do take down Texas State, but we are anxiously awaiting the top seeds. We'll still have an episode on Saturday and Sunday. Rumors are out there I'm going to be on the radio in Mobile. We'll see. I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to do that anymore. So very exciting stuff, and looking forward to it. So we've had some blowouts, and we finally had a couple of close ball games that I'd say the Georgia State-Georgia Southern game was closer than that score would indicate, but it really wasn't. It was kind of a blowout. It got close, and then it got pulled away again. The ODU-Texas State game was close throughout, kind of roller coaster ride throughout, as ODU had a big lead. Texas State took the lead. ODU took it back. Texas State had control and then lost it. I mean, Texas State's going to be sick when they see how they lost that ball game. They gave that game away 2 or 3 different times badly. And then ODU almost gave it back. Brutal. All right. Nonetheless, do appreciate everybody tuning in. And we will be back with a Saturday edition of Locked On Sunbelt. We're not going to stop just because it's the weekend. Been doing the tournament, so we will do another episode on a Saturday as well. All right. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. Hope you've enjoyed the tournament. Maybe we'll throw in some baseball as well. Cajuns hosting Dallas Baptist. Chase Morgan out of the Friday starters role. We'll see if he's even starting this weekend. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but they are doing Holtzhammer on Friday, at least this weekend. So there's that. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been listening and watching to Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day,